to order. This is the meeting of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board for March 15th, 2022, and this meeting is being recorded. As we go through the, we will go through the agenda pretty much, I believe, in order. But the first thing is to deal with the minutes of February 15th that had been distributed, and there were a couple of corrections suggested today. And if I will try to put them on the screen share. Do we see them?
Yes.
Okay. The two corrections that came in today were to indicate Barbara Roberts is a member of the Landmarks Board and was at the meeting of February 15th, having been appointed February 8th, and to also include the approval of the January 11, 2022 meetings minutes, as well as the January 18th, which Susan called to our attention today. Is there any other consideration to be made for the minutes? Seeing no one raising or questioning, I will move their adoption. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Jeff. All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. The minutes are approved. And thank you, Susan, and Barbara for catching us up on some of those items. So we will proceed to the first item of business on the agenda, which is the standing issue of the demolition permit application for 2297 Montauk Highway in Bridgehampton. A report was distributed previously to the Landmarks Board members. And as you can see, this house has some character on Main Street, Bridgehampton. The house was outlined in previous previous studies of historic resources in Southampton, in Bridgehampton, by a Hamlet Center plan done in 2004 and a 2009 survey by historical consultant Ann Sanford. In addition, yes?
It
Susan?
was also in that GAI report.
Okay. I remember there being one. I didn't catch that, but thank you for pointing that out.
Well, I looked in the table and I printed it out, but for some reason I haven't walked over to the printer, and I tried to send it to myself and it didn't happen. But anyways, it was listed in that, and also that little table at the end of the in the AKRF said it was on the SHPO database. But when I looked at that SHPO list, I didn't see it there, but they may not have gotten as far as Bridgehampton.
Right. Well, the significant identification
Exactly.
is the most recent one in 2014 by the AKRF consultant when they did their townwide survey. And the house had guesstimates made of its build, but I found the newspaper itemization for its 1909 construction by Wallace Haynes Halsey. Wallace Haynes Halsey, was born in a recently landmarked house on 248 New Light Lane in 1881, and was a prominent engineer and surveyor in the east end of Long Island and in the town of Southampton, as well as in the village of Southampton, where he served as engineer and operated out of the village town hall. He also worked for the Suffolk County Shellfish Commission to lay out the beds for the shellfish industry, which in the 19-teens and 1920s was becoming big-time economics as it was supplying the growing New York City market. And so the economic interest and battle, so to speak, over the bottomlands of our bays began to become very important and needed needed bounding for those who were licensed to use them. He also was involved in big-time development activity, the Devon Colony in Amagansett, and also the Montauk Manor development of Carl Fisher in the 1920s, before they were stopped by the onset of the Depression. He sold his house in 1919 to Frank Hand, who was a farmer in Bridgehampton, but had other economic activity. Frank Hand basically lived in the house and rented out a portion of the house for the many years that he possessed it. And when he died, his estate sold it to Richard B. Sanford, who was a member of a prominent business family of Bridgehampton for 3 generations, involved in putting the gas mains and lighting up Bridgehampton early in the 1900s, putting in water supply, ultimately developing the water system for the Bridgehampton area as well. So that's basically the ownership of the house. It does have certainly some elements of historic prominence associated with the local individuals who were prominent in the business community. It was identified in its Queen Anne architectural style by AKRF. We basically look at the house not necessarily in the context of its historic persons and builders and so on, but because it's located in the Bridgehampton Main Street hamlet, which has been the subject of focus for the development of a historic district. On that basis, I had formulated some recommendations as to process here, suggesting that the application for demolition, to find that the demolition of the house will be an irreparable loss to the historic character of Main Street, and the establishment of a Bridgehampton Historic District. That we recommend the applicant seek alternative plans for adaptive reuse of the existing building so that the some residential and potential office character might be developed, perhaps with the addition of a building on the rear of the property there. That's just a suggestion that something else might be possible. There may be other possibilities for preserving it with some other adaptations. And third, because the town board has expressed its interest in the formation of a historic district and preserving the character of Bridgehampton with its many houses that have been adaptive for other purposes along its main street, that we refer this question to the town board for further evaluation, as well as to recommend that the building inspector and the director of land management wait upon whatever consideration that the town board might want to give to it before the issuance of a demolition permit. This is the house of recent times. It has been obviously the landscape elements have been removed, large trees and shrubbery that were there apparently decorating effectively the house. It now looks fairly stark in its present form. Just to indicate the prospective, this is the neighborhood. This is the property here outlined in the orange boundary. The prospect is to build an office building here. Now, this is an office building here presently, a real estate office operating. This is a small residential house which has an antique store presently in it, and the ownership I'm not sure about. This is a commercial office building of a developer who is also now building on this vacant parcel to his east a connected office building. So this vacant parcel, which used to have a very small cottage on it, is also going to have a commercial space there. If one looks at the consequence, this is what is being offered is a conceptual plan without design elements for a replacement office building. And also, it appears that any development of this property would have to get variances for some kind of setbacks, variances for the setback requirements associated with any development here because of the neighboring properties. None of those have been acquired yet from anything that I have looked at. So this demolition is being asked for on the basis of a prospective building or buildings that would be installed here based upon the presumption that all those variances are going to be given. That to me is, something that is a little chancy in this prospect. So that basically is how I came to think that this should be given evaluation at a higher level of town government for the issuance of a permit for demolition. Now, first, colleague board members, do you have any immediate comment? There may be people, participants who are waiting to add their comments. Perhaps you would want to hear from them first. Okay, why don't we do this? Charles, if you can, for those people who wish to speak to 2297 Montauk Highway, raise your hand so that Charles may admit you to the discussion.
I have one person. And
okay. We have one person, Anne.
Hi. Yes.
Good evening, Ann.
Hi, I'm just working to enlarge this. Yeah, I thought this was an excellent proposal that was written up, and I just wanted to emphasize a couple of points that have already been made in that proposal. One is, and I'm actually looking at a letter that I wrote to the press in 2008, believe it or not. And in that was a response to the demolition of the Elaine Benson Gallery, which was 2 houses away from the Halsey house. And I will certainly read the letter, but in that one letter, I identified 5 houses demolished in Bridgehampton, 2 on Main Street, and I guess 4, 2 on Ocean Road. And so it seems to me that we're gradually eliminating the sort of mid-19th century into the early 20th century streetscapes of Bridgehampton. And certainly I would think, my view is that Main Street, Montauk Highway, is by far the most important. And that streetscape, I think, Ed, you perhaps mentioned it, includes setbacks. I mean, it's interesting. The houses, I guess one was demolished next to the Presbyterian Church, not the 2 buildings away on Main Street. And it changes your feeling, your ability to feel a part of this heritage. So I would argue that the current structure gives that feeling. And related to that, I don't see how the house next door, which I thought was an art gallery, but I guess it's an antique shop. I don't see how that could survive with, have these huge office buildings on each side. So I think the whole area would become large office space, and I think that would be a great loss to the hamlet. And the second point, and largely your research, Ed, Wallace Halsey. I mean, this guy is significant to have designed or outlined as an engineer Camp Upton in 1919. I mean, that could have a New York State marker, I would say. I mean, Camp Upton is really important. And you mentioned the Devon colony in the 1920s. And I didn't realize that he was born in the house on New Light Lane. So those are just a couple of points of emphasis I would like to make. I strongly support this proposal.
All right, thank you, Ann. Any other participants wishing to comment?
Ed, I just wanted to add, it's Julie. I'm
Hi,
sorry.
Julie.
I've got a house full of kids. But I wanted to echo all of this sentiment. This house it's just irreplaceable. Its history, its owner, who it was built for. Did you come across anything in your thing that Howard Halsey, who is the antique shop next door, were they related?
I don't think closely. I think they might have been a generation apart.
Okay.
I'm not an expert on
The
Halsey
genealogy.
genealogy, and anybody trying to do that in the Hamptons has really got their task
Right.
set out.
Right. But, as we had worked on the historic district for Bridgehampton, it's really important that these are the buildings that make up the landscape that everyone is familiar with. And to lose these buildings one after another is quite devastating. And we cannot replace it. Once they're gone, they're gone. So I wasn't able to be at the last meeting. So I wanted to just be here to lend my support in any way that I can with the town board, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Are there other comments to be made?
just
Go
to
ahead.
put my penneth in, when you look across, and even the post office, which I know is 1960s, is integral to the organic growth of the high street. And so is that house. So I think it would be a shame, I echo what you say, it'd be terrible to lose it. Because then you have Farrell and Newman Village across. It's nothing but office buildings. There's no character to it.
Office buildings and parking lots.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes, they are ready to tear it down, and it's falling down in the back. So what I would, if there was a way to make it not such an eyesore while it's going through this process, and to make sure it's not a hazard, because they've cleaned all the landscaping away. So it's going to be a mud field by the end of this month. So not that should be relevant to us, but I don't want that to be part of their argument.
Okay. Anything else? I would put back the report back on the screen with the question of these recommendations without further comments to be made. I would like the board to go on record adopting these recommendations as the action of the Landmarks Board. Do I hear a motion to that effect? Is that a motion from Martha? Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second from Jeff. Further discussion of these recommendations?
I agree.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, and we'll undertake the somewhat bumpy ride in communication. As you know, we lost our communications agent, Janet Johnson, because she left the service of Southampton to move to the historic community of Savannah, Georgia. And we don't have yet the support that would replace her, as far as I know, and we'll have to work on that, hopefully by our next meeting, in order to get some smooth operation here. With that, I think we can move on to the second item on the agenda, which is 88 Lewis Road, East Quogue, which Stephanie provided a set of written comments on, which I'll bring up here.
Okay, and she asked me if I would just give a synopsis of it and answer any questions that anybody had.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a demolition application for 88 Lewis Road in East Quogue. And East Quogue was formerly known as Fourth Neck or Atlanticville or Oakville at different times. Lewis Road was opened early in the history of the hamlet. It's shown on the 1858 historic map. The property includes a two-story residence with an AYB of 1890, a newer detached garage with an AYB of 1960, and a shed with an AYB of 1928. But we don't think that that's the same shed that's there today. Stephanie thought it was much newer, so there may have been an earlier one that's now been replaced, but all three buildings are to be demolished. The property is approximately 12.6 acres, and they propose to redevelop it with just a single family residence, which is nice that they're keeping the whole parcel intact. The property is not identified in the 2014 AKRF Town Survey of Historic Resources, but it is identified as an historic resource number 47 in the East Quogue Hamlet Heritage Area Report. There are 2 AKRF identified historic resources nearby, including the Box Tree Monument, located to the south just across the railroad tracks, and the Oakwood Cemetery located a little further north on Lewis Road. Just a little side sort of thing, the Box Tree Monument, located adjacent to 96 Lewis Road at the intersection of Lewis Road and Box Tree Road, was a hollowed out oak tree. And it was the first post office in Quogue, which sounds kind of odd that it was a hollowed out tree, yet it was the post office. According to some sources, including the monument there itself, this was the first letterbox in the United States. And by 1765, when mail would arrive weekly from New York City, letters and papers were left in a box that was nailed to the tree. In 1894, the tree was removed after it had caught fire and had fallen over. A remnant of the tree was taken to Mr. Burton's store. He was the postmaster of Quogue, to signify its new designation as a post office. And today, remnants of that original tree are located in the Quogue Museum. The Hamlet Heritage Area Report describes the dwelling as an existing structure consisting of 2-story front-facing gable, although the gable faces the driveway, it doesn't face the road. The gables are left and right as you look at it from the street. It has a wraparound porch set against a 2-story gambrel roofed volume with a 1-story shed extension on the rear, clad in cedar shingles and an asphalt roof. Several of the windows are replacement. The home was owned by A. Randall on the 1902 and 1916 historic maps, but is not depicted on the 1873 map. Therefore, an 1890s construction date, as shown in the town records, appears to be accurate. There appears to be no relationship between the 2 nearby historic resources and the subject property, other than that many of the people associated with the subject property are buried in the Oakville Cemetery. The 1873 map shows one structure designated E. Rayner in the general area of the subject property. However, based on its location much closer to the Long Island Railroad tracks, it's not likely the current dwelling. The 1902 map shows 2 structures on the subject property, which is then identified as A. Randall. These appear to be the current dwelling and another structure, likely a barn that has since been removed, and both structures are noted on the 1906 map. 1938 aerial photo shows that the property is in agricultural use and also appears to still be in agricultural use in the 1947 aerial photo. The Randall family seems to have appeared in East Quogue around 1848. And Albert Gallatin Randall, who married Clara Bell Terry of Holtzville in 1889, is noted in the Suffolk County News in 1901 as making the recent purchase of the 12.5-acre property on the south side of Lewis Road in Atlanticville. Albert and Clara had 6 children, all born in East Quogue. Several articles and ads were included in Stephanie's report. One in the 1931 County Review newspaper noted that A.G. Randall was the proprietor of the Twin Oak Dairy for the prior 7 years, which had started in about 1924. The dairy operation was also noted in Mr. Randall's obituary and the East Quogue Hamlet Heritage Area Report, which places the dairy operation on Lewis Road. Randall Lane, named after the Randalls, to the south and to the east of the Hamlet Center, was opened in the early 1900s and is the location of several adjoining former Randall family properties at that time. Most of the windows in the house appear to be original 2/2 with wavy glass, although some replacement windows were observed on the upper level. The screen porch on the front seems to be a more modern addition, as well the shed-roofed addition on the rear and the gambrel roofed additions on the rear appear to be later additions. Stephanie noticed that there was a lot of lack of care, I guess, on the property and in the house. And she noted by looking at the size of the little pine trees growing around in the yard, it's been quite a while since the lawn was mowed. The foundation was very interesting. It appeared that they stacked stones, built wooden forms, and then poured concrete to set the stones in place. In the photo, there's an opening to the left of the wall there where they had cut through to create the foundation for the addition under the rear additions. The framing is visible in the basement. There's a lot of water damage on the boards. Framing appears to be fully dimensional sawn lumber, with the exception of some larger pieces that appeared to be repurposed older beams. There are some examples of fine, intact original building materials within the home, including the staircase, the front door, the mantle, fireplace surrounds, doors, hardware, and Stephanie said that these materials should be salvaged and reused. There's evidence in some locations where the finishes have been removed that there had been fire damage, and although never repaired, it was just finished over and left until it was recently revealed. In addition to the front stairway, there's also a rear winding stair between the second floor and the kitchen featured some interesting built-in cupboards beneath the winding stair. Typical conditions inside the residence include dated finishes, water damage, holes in the walls and or ceilings due to water intrusion, animal damage, and or building inspection damage. It appeared that someone had been in the house poking holes in the walls and the ceiling, I guess trying to find out what the framing was, and left their damage behind. There was also broken windows, mold in some areas, and in the areas that have been opened up, Stephanie noted that there was no insulation in any of the walls or ceilings or floors. And overall, the building showed significant signs of deterioration from long-term neglect. The detached garage is a concrete block construction and showed no indications of any historic materials. The shed is of wood and also appears non-historic. An older foundation is present behind the two buildings, the two outbuildings. Behind the garage and the shed is another foundation, and Stephanie thought that that was in the location where the barn was shown in the 1902 and 1916 maps. The building is gone, but the foundation remains. The former agricultural areas to the rear are now heavily overgrown with massive trees, including locust and Norway maple. The neighborhood surrounding the property has very few historic resources, although the former use of the property as a dairy is no longer apparent. The property history is of local historic interest, and the exterior appearance of the dwelling is recognizable to the local community. However, overall, the property does not appear to meet any of the criteria for consideration as a landmark under the town code. The dwelling includes some interior historic elements that appear to be in good condition and worthy of salvage and reuse. However, the deteriorated condition of the dwelling, lack of insulation, and apparently outdated and non-functional building systems suggest that the rehabilitation and reuse of the dwelling would not be reasonably feasible.
Okay. I think it was an excellent report that I think Stephanie prepared, and very thorough in terms of assessment of the condition of the building and its character. Do we have comments about this building and its the application for demolition? If not, I would suggest that our consensus is that we have no objection to the application to demolish, and we follow up on Stephanie's recommendation that all the appropriate finished material inside the house that can be saved be dedicated to salvage and reuse possibilities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so if that's the consensus, we will proceed on that basis. Okay, third item on the agenda, 20 Old Mill Road Watermill, which involved a garage demolition application for an accomplished fact. The garage was already demolished. And Susan, were you, I don't have the names on who communicated to Janet that we were passing on it?
Stephanie and I did. So
Okay.
Stephanie emailed it out.
I thought it was Stephanie and you, so
Yeah.
thank you for
But,
confirming that.
And it's also, it was as far as we can tell, it was a 1970 AYB garage. And the engineer's report that was done earlier in 2018 said it was actually a 1990s garage, but there's a pile there of wood and it's gone. So based on that, it's the house that's important. We've reviewed that before. It has an interesting history, interesting architect. It used to be actually a Victorian home that was converted into that shape by the same architect that did the War Memorial in Southampton Village. But that's the focus, but not the garage. And the shed was relocated, and that again, I thought I saw them on the 1954 map, but you can't say if it's exactly the same shed and the same garage, but it's relocated elsewhere, but it won't affect the house that we are concerned about.
Okay. All right. With that, 3300 Noyak Road application was for work that was basically, as I recall, was it a shower or bath in a accessory building?
Was plumbing, I think, in the accessory.
Yeah, and I think Stephanie and I reviewed it and referred it back to the building department as not being significant for review. So 47 Newman Avenue. A house in the intergalactic village of Bridgehampton. Let me see if I can bring that up. I sent out this report. And it's a brief one, basically. This is a little bit off Main Street. This is actually a parking lot access from Main Street on the right in this picture. This is 47 Newman Avenue, which actually contains two residences. This one has an AYB of 1920. This area of Newman Avenue was once called Osborne Park. As it developed, starting about 1907, 1908, as houses began to be built. This land originally was farmland of the Corwith family, which owned a lot of farmland along the north side of Montauk Highway in Bridgehampton, as well as the land upon which the community house was built on the south side of Montauk Highway. In checking this out, this house is the one that is applying for a construction which involves closing in this porch here on the corner of the house and adding a bedroom on this side of the house and extending a patio out for the cottage as well. This is the driveway for the existing driveway for this house for the individuals to access it. This is a swimming pool covered over in the middle of this property, and this is the main residential house. This is a garage, probably originally a workshop as well for one of the earlier owners back in the 1950s or so. As you can see, there are skylights on the roof of this house, and checking it out, this basically, the skylights were added in 2004. So the house has been subject to some remodeling. I managed, and looking at a photograph, this photograph comes from the report, the Bridgehampton Hamlet Heritage Report done by Ann Sanford, and was part of it. And in this photograph here, if I can blow this up a little bit, or maybe too much, you can see in 1949, this cottage is present. So it's AYB of 1950 is, you know, probably not too far off. This land, this is Bridgehampton Main Street, the Presbyterian Church, the Candy Kitchen. The community house is here in the lower corner of the picture. It's off the photograph. And these stores here and land were at one time owned by Raymond McGee, who built some of the stores, a farmer and businessman in Bridgehampton, very successful. And his widow sold a small piece of land to the owner of this property, Harry F. Miller, in 1945. And in looking at this photograph in 1949, you see that there's already mature landscaping around the cottage, indicating that maybe a couple years have passed since this cottage might have been built, and that perhaps it was associated with the additional acreage that the owner purchased for $1,000 from the McGee family. So in any case, I think between 1945 and 1949, the cottage was built and remained pretty much the same for a long period of time. Of course, the Bridgehampton Main Street has filled in quite a bit from the era of this picture here, so it has undergone some transformations. Martha, you had taken some pictures. Maybe I can bring up those pictures.
Behind Bridgehampton Montauk Highway is Newman Avenue, and there's a number of little cottages there that are charming. And I think these houses are integral to the town. And as we go for this historic application, it's a lovely place to be able to walk. So it'd be a shame not that they want to, they're not tearing the house down, they're keeping it.
This is one of your photos?
Yes, that's the
Okay.
main house. There's a lot on this property.
Let's
I
see
mean,
if I can. This is in
that's
back
the
of the
rear
house.
yard.
Mhm.
And the cottage that they're talking about is beyond that.
Wait,
But
yeah.
the scale doesn't do it justice. It's quite small.
This
That's
is the
rear of the main
cottage.
house.
Right. Um, this is the porch that would be enclosed, and this is the area that would have a new bedroom put onto it. And again, a picture that has perspective questions associated with it to some
Yeah.
degree. Yeah.
It's
So-
once again, that's the cottage to the left of the main house.
This is the garage here.
Yes.
Yeah. And just driveways
That's
associated
just
with it
the neighborhood.
across the house. Yes. This house once stood on Main Street, Bridgehampton, and was one of the first houses moved into what was Osborne Park. This house was built about 1840 and belonged to several prominent Bridgehampton individuals in the 19th century before it was moved. For anybody who is familiar with the location of the Episcopal Church, St. Anne's in Bridgehampton Main Street, this house occupied that place at one time. Okay, anyway, that's and something of an irrelevancy there. And just tracking I was tracking the history of this place. This is the survey done for Olga Muller that was in the Southampton Town Records, and Olga Muller came from a prominent family of architects in New York, John Muller and his son Peter Paul Muller, who also relocated to Bridgehampton and designed and practiced in Bridgehampton as well as New York City. But she had been associated and bought it from the niece of the former owner, who was the executor for the former owner, named Harry Miller, who was a New York City harbor pilot, bringing in probably passenger ships during the 1930s and 40s before he retired in 1940. I think he retired in 1945 to Bridgehampton. I traced him back to about 1933 in his ownership. Thereafter, I couldn't identify him being associated with the origins of the house, but that basically became the ownership trail. Harry Miller to Olga Muller to two other owners before the current owners who had this house. I don't see any problems. I don't know, Martha, do you have any thoughts about the proposed?
It's a little side street that backs onto the parking lot where Thayer's and Golden Pear are. So I don't think there's any harm in
Right.
letting them work on the back of the house.
Actually, it's kind of screened off a little bit, even as you drive by on the road from Newman Avenue into the Golden Pear Main Street parking lot.
Yeah,
There across.
Don't like to count on landscaping. That's a
Well,
rule.
that's a good point. A good point to keep in mind. So.
But I don't think they're ruining it. I think it's important not to ruin those houses.
Right. And I agree. It is it's a cute neighborhood and a walkable street in Bridgehampton that I think a lot of people find satisfying. So if there's no other comment, I'll send a response back to the building department if I find the person to contact there, that our consensus is no objection to the construction application. No. Okay. I don't imagine the next item, continuing item, is the question of a COA for the Rogers House. I don't imagine much as
Continuing.
continuing. Good, as I say,
Leave it at that.
we've had several referrals from the planning department that we possibly might need to respond to. One is the 2055 Flanders Road, Flanders, and I should have gotten my I'll try to bring that up to show the as I sign in here to the GIS website. Okay. Let me see if I can share here.
Stephanie suggested that they might send a map with the location, but I didn't see that arrive. Correspondence.
Let me go here, 2055, okay. Let me try to, I got too many things occupying the same space here. Where do I get the, okay, here we are. This is the site. It's a ordinary consideration for the siting of a cell tower. This is the parcel on Flanders Road. If you want a close-up of it, you will see that it's a junkyard. As probably a revenue source for the owner of the yard. I myself am, the yard is fairly well obscured as you travel Flanders Road. My sense, I don't think there are any historic resources in the neighborhood. Tim, do you have some?
There's a few questionable ones that are not in very good shape. It is outside of the Flanders Village Historic Core. As long as it's set back an ample amount from the street, I don't think it would be noticed. And I really don't have any objection.
As for example, towards the rear of the property rather than certainly the front of the office building. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I think further down, you know, as you move more into the development of some of the developments in Flanders, there are one or two older structures and houses in this area that exist, but this basically is pretty much isolated from them.
Right. There's a few old houses that are in sort of disrepair adjacent to the junkyard that just I don't think this will impact them in a more negative way than the junkyard already does.
You're talking about the houses in this area here?
Yeah, they're probably north towards Flanders Road. I believe that one was mentioned in the Hamlet Heritage Report, but it's it's not really something that I think is of major concern with this proposal.
Uh-huh. Okay. So what I would suggest is that our response is that presently we, on this kind of phase one survey, looking for potential impacts, that we have no concern at the present. Okay.
Ed, let me just point out that this is not really a referral from the planning board. This is
A required SHPO type thing?
yes.
Yeah.
The developer is required under federal law to determine whether the siting of the cell tower would visually or physically impact nearby historic structures, and they're required to send such a letter to the municipality. So this is not really comments back to the planning board.
Right.
And it's unlikely that you would get a future referral from the planning board on this.
Okay, so noted. Any other considerations on this? Okay, we've put it to bed. Okay. 174 Wakeman Road and 91 Fanning Avenue, a combination of corner parcels here. Let's see if I can get that. It involves a subdivision and boundary adjustment in Hampton Bays. And let me get that on the screen here for you. Okay. This is a approximately a, I don't know, a 1931 house at Fanning Avenue, 2-story. This is the property on Wakeman 174, which they want to make a boundary adjustment that would provide for a strip of property for the back of this house. This is a new house, 2004, as is this house is a new house, 2004. Aerial imagery doesn't show any buildings there prior. These parcels have common ownership, which is why the application, I think, was able to be made to accomplish this possible change. Is there any board concern here that you might see?
No, I'll just comment that larger parcel, I believe they're going to divide in half. So that's part of it. It's a lot line for the one on the newer home, like you mentioned on the left.
Right.
And then they're going to subdivide that larger parcel in half, which would include the demolition
of this house. Mm-hmm.
And there's a cottage or something in the back. I didn't see a
right here
of it on the left too.
Oh, here, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a shed, and it's been in front of the planning board for a number of years. I've mentioned it, and no one's had particular concerns. We weren't sure the fate of the house at 91 Fanning. At least I wasn't until now. But I think in AKRF, it was mentioned in the table as lacking integrity, unless somebody found something during research, but I didn't.
Right. I just know the name of the existing owners. I didn't do any trace of the ownership
but based on the architecture of the house, I didn't research it back farther either. So I don't, I'm just mentioning this. I don't have a concern, even though I don't like houses to be demolished. I don't have any, but I'm not from Hampton Bays and we have nobody here, of course, representing them, but I couldn't think of any reason to object or have a concern.
Okay. Any further concern? I don't have concerns myself, but if anybody else has any thoughts to add at this point, without any other comment, then I will send comment back to the planning board that we have no objection to the question of the boundary adjustments at this point, and the demolition issue for subdivision would be reviewed at the time of an application for demolition. So, okay, all right. 529 Country Road, a very famous building. County Road 39, rather. Let me see if I can bring that up. The Roscoe Potato House. Okay.
Coming in now.
Somebody's coming in. Okay.
It is finding it. I think most people have passed it. It's at the corner of McGee and County Road 39. And we've had our eye on it, of course, for a while because of its interest to the community.
Yeah, I have a problem here with this video arrangement here. What's exit? Okay. Let me try to share the screen again without too much. Oops. Okay, let me try to. Okay, do we see it?
Yes.
Okay. The proposal basically, this is a very large potato house structure, given the size of potato houses on the South Fork here that I'm familiar with very iconic almost vents installed on at the ridge of the gambrel roof on the building. This was a caretaker's apartment that is on the property. The property is basically unused at the moment. And the proposal is to basically become a store for a nursery with some storage, and to retain the residential apartment that is on the property. Let me see if I can get an oblique image here to give a little bit of more character to okay, does the oblique show?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So again, the building is partially embanked by soil around it, which would be appropriate for keeping potatoes. There is no town records do not record a date of build for it. And I didn't get a chance to check aerial maps and other newspaper references for it in order to try and date its history. But certainly my sense is that trying to keep it. It's been in deteriorating form, I think. Isn't that your opinion, Susan?
Yeah, I was very concerned about that in the past. The roof has patched. The interior and exterior pictures supplied by the applicant, and I think they may be here, were excellent. You had a number of close-ups of what the different sides looked like, but a lot of the roof, you can see the patch as you drive by on the road. Different places have been patched, but you can see on the interior pictures when they photographed up toward the roof, you can see the light come through different places right now. So, my sense is the fact that somebody has purchased this, at least according to a recent Southampton Press, it has been purchased by apparently new owners, and they are making plans to refurbish, restore different parts. I think when the time comes that they would be making a separate application for the construction itself. So if we had any particular comments on construction, the barn doors are being replaced with glass. If we had any comments, I think they're going to be 4 or 5, let me think, 4 gabled sort of doghouse dormers facing County Road 39. Then on the, instead of the different vents, they're going to have 5 cupolas up there, but we can make the comments on that. But my sense is that they are making plans to refurbish and use the structure, which will certainly increase its longevity.
Yes, I thought for sure that eventually it would wind up destroyed. And the nursery use of it is basically in line with its agricultural origins to some degree as well. So there's a lot of water. There's some water damage inside that was noted. I don't know if you see the interior pictures here
Right.
available. Yeah.
Well, if you look at the holes in the ceiling, you can see where the water most likely, in the roof where the water came from.
Yeah. There is, not that the owners may be aware, new owners, but I believe that the Department of Interior has programs associated with the restoration of historic barns.
Oh.
And I think also to some degree, New York State did have a partnership for the restoration of historic barns, but I think they have to be, quote, landmarked or protected in some fashion. Not just any old barn, but a barn that would be kept for eventual long-term use and survival. So with respect to responding to, we applaud the potential restoration and use of the barn as a means to preserve it, and look forward to an application for the actual architectural and structural renovation that would take place.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I make a quick comment if you guys can hear us?
Okay, I can hear somebody. Oh, okay.
Yes, it's Cole and Stephen Mezaneski. We are the new owners of this property.
Okay.
Just a little history. So the building, it was built in 1946 by the Roscoe family.
You do have a date for it. Okay.
That's according to Connie Roscoe, who had showed me the original plans. He said right after World War II, they came back and built this as a commercial building to store potatoes and other agricultural products.
All right.
Just a quick brief history on us. My great grandparents moved to Waynescott, and they were migrants.
Mitchell? Is that Mitchell?
Mitchell Senior, Mitchell's father.
Right.
So
Mitchell Senior restored my house.
okay, yep, he built a lot of old structures around Bridgehampton and Southampton, and
Right.
so my children, my two sons, are now coming into the business, and they're fifth generation here. And our plan is we're going to completely restore this and use this as our offices and as a nursery supply yard, and have it for generations to come. And just the only changes will be there'll be 4 dormers to let some natural light into it on the County Road 39 side, and the metal vents up top will be changed to a more aesthetic wooden vent, cupola type vent, just so visually it'll look a little better. Other than that, the entire structure is going to stay the same. We are going to utilize cedar shakes and cedar siding, and make it look like the historic barn that it was.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, good luck with the project. Tackling old buildings for renovation can be an interesting experience.
We've done several of them, so we're opening a can of worms.
Okay. So,
thank you for your input, and I appreciate it.
well, thanks for being here to tell us a little bit about it, and we'll be watching along the way to see the progress and
And we do
hopefully
have
the success.
We do have a set of plans that were submitted if you want to see them quick.
Well, at the time, possibly when they go to the building department will be shuffling them around to us. So that's probably the more appropriate time to
All right,
to
great.
look at them.
All right. Well, thank you guys for your time.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, 360 Montauk Highway Eastport is an ongoing saga, which basically I don't think we have any further progress on it, do we, Dave? Or
No, I don't think we even need to keep it on the agenda, quite frankly.
I'll probably have to revisit the thing, but you may be right on that. Not having Stephanie here to comment on it, we'll probably talk about getting it off the agenda at the next meeting. Okay.
Sounds good. I mean, it doesn't require any referral to the Landmarks Board.
Right. I think it basically was trying to, get a grasp on the story that was associated with, with the site.
That's fine.
Okay. Just before we go on to the next items, well, the Bridgehampton Historic District discussion is basically pending the work on the CLG code revisions, the Certified Local Government Code proposals, which are scheduled for March 24th work session with the town board, for them to take a look at them, and potentially after that perhaps be scheduled for the needed public hearing for code revisions and any possible adoption down the road. That schedule is what you understand, David?
That's correct. March 24th.
Okay, very good. Just as a note, the public hearing on the John Adams Dix Windmill was held on March 8th, last Tuesday. First in-person meeting in a long time. Thanks to Charles Certain. A last-minute ability to make a public, visible presentation before the town board was made possible. And I thought it went reasonably well. The public hearing was closed. Action for designation of the landmark is probably dependent upon the dotting of I's and the crossing of T's on some legal paperwork involved with the deed to the site, which the windmill would be moved, and the intermunicipal agreement to be worked out between the town of Southampton and the village of West Hampton Beach. I don't know if there are any other threads, loose threads hanging out there other than those.
And I just comment, it was on March 10th, there was a nice article, it was in the Newsday that featured the windmill. And I appreciate your history, of course, that you researched, Ed, because now it has a name that I don't think it had before. It was called, you know, whatever, by the street name or the location name. But I like the fact that it has a person's name, and that seems to be what they're referring to when they write articles about it.
Well, that's one more historical step for mankind. Okay. David, do you have any inkling? Well, first of all, there are two things where when building department applications are going to be referred to us, what is the path by which they will be referred?
We
At this
actually
point.
have Tara Cody on as a panelist. She is with the GIS department, and she will be fulfilling the role of Janet until we get a permanent replacement. And being in the IT department, she's also working on the transition to digital submissions. So Tara, do you want to pipe in on what the process would be in this interim time period?
Hello, everybody. I was trying to wait till the end of the meeting because I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, we
the
dragged you
meeting.
in beforehand. Yeah.
We're
Don't
having,
worry.
I'm having trouble hearing you, Tara. Is your mic down low?
Let's see. How is it now?
It's a little better. I don't know about other people, but my speakers are already turned up pretty loud.
Oh, my apologies.
It's most that I can hear.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tara.
Okay. So yes, so it will be a bumpy road, as Mr. Wisnowski had said in the beginning, until we find a replacement for Janet. But we are working on a digital submission plan for the documents. I would like, if possible, if everyone could just email me their personal email addresses so that I may get in contact with you individually, so that I don't take up time during your meetings. This can be during the day, whenever you have a time available, so I can Zoom and speak with everyone on an individual basis.
Tara?
Yes.
The Landmarks board members all have town email addresses that we use.
Okay, great.
There may be some that aren't using the town email address, so.
Yeah, that's a question I was going to raise. Barbara Roberts does not have a town email box yet.
Okay.
I did get a letter today that I should stop by the office in Southampton to get all of that done. So I will do that in the next couple of days, Ed.
Who did you get the letter from? Do you
Um,
recall?
the Human Resource Department. Eileen, I think was the woman's name. But I went in to do my take the oath of office last Wednesday, and they told me to stop by the HR department, which I did, and I filled out some paperwork. They couldn't see me live that day, and the receptionist took all my paperwork, and she told me I'd get a note when I should go back to the town hall to finish things, and I got that this morning.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
So Tara, you're good with using the town email addresses, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Jeff, are you using the town email?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So, I mean, we all should be using or checking it somewhat regularly. I know some people check it irregularly in long periods of inattention. So I think we should try to be a little bit more on target with the town email use.
Right.
So,
Okay, so Tara, I cut you off there on the email addresses. I don't
No
know
problem.
where you
No
left off,
problem at
but
all.
so
Just that I would be contacting everyone, and if everyone is okay with using the town email address, that's perfectly fine with me.
okay, good. Good. So we will be expecting building department referrals from you. Building department applications.
Yes.
Okay, through you. Now with
And-
respect,
I'm sorry. And I'm also speaking with IT to set up a landmarks board email address so that in the future, if there are transitions within the department, that more people would be able to access the information instead of it just being in Janet or the board secretary's email account.
I'm not sure what that refers to.
So since we're going to be moving toward digital submissions, there
Right.
should be a generic email address where these digital submissions come into. It shouldn't be going to someone's personal town email address.
Okay, makes sense.
but isn't the digital transmission going to come from the building division? Just like the paper transmissions are?
Well, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but
Okay.
the building division will be giving the applicant a link to where they can upload documentation. But once they have that link and are able to upload documentation, it has to go somewhere. So it would go to a general landmarks board email address.
Okay. And then each landmark board member would be responsible to go to that. Well, so it's an email address. How would landmarks board members retrieve those digital referrals?
So Dave, I don't want to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right.
It's
I
in-
don't know how
it's-
far along we are.
Yeah, it's in process, obviously. So, okay, so that's one aspect of getting our reviews. For example, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, if there are applications made for demolition, construction, how will we get to them if the system is not yet in place?
So as it stands right now, we will be business as usual. So I'm going to work with Janice tomorrow and Kim to see if when building gets a referral, they can hand it off to someone within town hall, it's scanned, and then I'll make those packets and send them over to you.
Okay. That solves the intake problem. Now, how will our communications go to the building department on our responses?
I think Dave and Janice and Kim and I will need to work that out within the department. So,
Okay, so that's a work in progress too.
correct.
Okay,
And Dave, you and I will have to sit down and say, okay, Janet would do this, this, and this. So we'll have to figure out how that's not going to look now.
Are we talking about when we go to digital, or are we talking about now while we're still doing paper copies?
Current now as we stand right now.
Okay, so all the reports from tonight, what should the members be doing with those?
So for the moment, those can still go back to Janet's email account. I'm going to ask for permission to that email account tomorrow during working hours.
Janet's email account today was non-existent.
Oh, they closed it down already?
They closed it down already, yes.
Okay. So in the meantime, for the moment, you can send them directly to me. And if you'd like, you could CC Dave as well. But yes, you can send them to me. And my
Okay,
email,
I will.
Don't CC me.
don't-
CC Dave. Oh, okay. Okay.
Does that go for everything?
I know, but I don't want to get the reports back.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I would get them, Janet would get them from you, and then she would forward them to the building division, and she would CC me, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's about a month ago, we were doing it directly to Marjorie in the building department.
That's right.
We still could do that without getting,
No, we don't want to do that. No, send them to Tara.
okay, work the administrative details out. That's your department. So the question then is, I will send these responses to Tara, and they will get forwarded to the appropriate department. No?
Yes.
Okay. You don't know what you're in for, Tara.
That's what I keep hearing.
So, okay, any other administrative details that are wrinkles that we should be trying to deal with? We can probably handle this in an in-person meeting in April if there are problems yet to be evaluated. Okay. Okay, other matters. Susan, did you have anything on your plate there?
Yes, the one thing is that with the general demolition and construction list update, they're in progress. I hope to have the first 3 months put together and sent out before the next meeting. So you would have the beginning of 2022. But on that, just of note under demolition, I saw a legal ad in the Southampton Press that the New York Environmental Conservation Group, they were calling for comments by March 3rd regarding 1194 Flanders Road, the Gooddale House. And I'm not going to go through the particulars, but it was a CPF purchase that they were going to demolish the house and put a catwalk in. I think there was a house and a barn. And then at some point we heard that the house may be saved, but and adaptively reused. But of course, according to this, it was for the demolition of the Gooddale house was included in with the catwalk application. So I forward that on to Tim, who is going to let the Flanders people know. I think we've already commented on it. I mean, our comments were, and I'm not quite sure, 5 years ago plus whatever. So we didn't receive it as an application. I just read this in the papers.
Right. Did you get the response? Did you get my response to your email?
What was that?
Did you get my response to your email?
Yes, that you were
Okay.
going to, some people, yeah, no, so. Yes, I did get your response. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, but as a group, it didn't get put on the agenda because I don't think there's anything for us
Correct.
to address unless Ed thinks otherwise.
Susan, could you forward that to me? Because I was under the impression the town was not demolishing that house.
Okay, yeah, it's, yes, I scanned it and it was in the paper on February 17th, but I'll send that to you.
Susan, I marvel at your eagle eye.
I don't know how I found that, but it just.
Well, of course, it does have some interest to us because of the history of that
Right.
structure. So, but among other things, you still read newspapers apparently too.
Well, I get a little bit behind, but then I read there haven't been as many legal ads, luckily, but they changed the type, which has thrown me off. I used to be able to read them quickly. Now they have 3 different size types for different articles, and I don't care for that.
Susan, did you say that we commented on the demo of this house a while ago?
Oh, I think so. I think
What,
Yes.
what was the address?
1194
1194
or Flanders.
Flanders Road.
Flanders Road. Okay, let me
Yeah.
see. 1194 Flanders Road.
If I'm not mistaken, whatever the public comment portion may have been one of the last meetings from our former chairperson. or the
Yeah.
last meeting.
Yeah, I don't have a reference for it in my files for Flanders, so I don't have 100% of all the archives, but
Well, what I'll do is I'll just, along with David, I'll just send the history or whatever we had and and just give it to everybody for their general reference. So how's that sound?
sounds good.
Okay, so I'll send that to all. And that'll have a date on it, so it should maybe bring back some recollection. So that's on the demolition. I hope you're right, David. And then moving on to I assume you want me to go to the ZBA planning board, the pending applications. There's not too much. Most of them are repeats and no concern, but the planning board on February 4th, they had the Dick's Windmill, which of course it was referred by the town for the planning board to review. And the other one, and it's minor with the dates of the buildings. It was 149 Old Country and 14 Jagger Lane in Spionk, Rumsenburg. And there were two small houses with 1939 and 1940 AYBs. But that's basically to clear more than the property. There seems to be 17.6 acres, and they want to clear 9.35 for a flower farm. So it didn't actually have to do with the demolition, to my knowledge, of either of those structures, but it had to do with they needed some type of site plan for the planning board. So that would be the one that was on the 4th. And then on the ZBA, there were 2 meetings in February, and those are either repeats or nothing of concern for us. That's all.
Okay.
The flower farm has any landmarks concerns? What was your reason for thinking that might concern the landmarks board?
Well, it has 2 structures on. So the 1939 and the 1940, if they demolish those structures, I'm not familiar. As Stephanie and of course Bill are, I didn't see them in AKRF, but they would be more familiar if there was some significance with that property that I would know about.
Okay.
So it has
I don't believe they're proposing to demo those, but I think they did do some recent repairs on those buildings.
Which we probably didn't get, I don't think.
It leads me to wonder why there was no referral to the landmarks board, but they are not proposing. They're not proposing to do any demos.
Okay. Sometimes I get Old Country Road and South Country Road in South mixed up. So when I read it, I go, well, we had 149, but I'm going, oh, it was 149. I think South Country versus Old Country. But I just know the people who live in that area are the ones who will know. So I didn't realize they had been doing work on them, of course, unless I missed that. That's FYI, and we can let Stephanie know when she gets back from her event.
Okay. Under other matters, well, there's nothing to report. Just with respect to the topic, annual landmark inspections. Some time ago, I did some research about other towns and municipalities dealing with landmark inspections, and it's all done by the building inspector. It's not done by board members and commission members in any municipality. So that's just one element. Unfortunately, a lot of other stuff piled onto my agenda, and I have been able to think about or do anything more with respect to trying to figure out the mechanism for such a thing to occur. The landmarks, we have application for the landmarks maintenance award, which I sent out a reminder today, but it was circulated by Janet about 2 months ago, I believe. And let me see if I can bring that up. It is for a painting project for the exterior of the house at 556 Montauk Highway, East Quogue. And let me see if I can get this from Sharon Azzato. This is the Josiah Foster house with images of areas where things need to be done. I don't know if you all got a chance to look at the project, but the estimate provided is $13,260. It's the other pieces of information is just confirmation of landmark and the recipient of STAR tax credit on the bill, which is a requirement for an award for the program. We have about $103,000 remaining in our landmark award account. A little
How
bit
much was that?
$103,300, against which there is a $10,000 encumbrance for the project of 2021 that we awarded, which has not been fully executed yet, and we gave an extension to the end of 2022 for it. Bill, you notified the owner that we decided to allow the extension.
Yes, yep, I told her.
After our last meeting, I believe. So,
Yep.
So basically, we're talking about there being $93,000 or so that is there. My thought is it's the only application. They have, I believe, we had a grant to them sometime back for porch repair.
Yes.
Maybe 3 years ago or so. I forget how much was involved with that. How do my colleague board members feel about an award or an amount of an award that might be given for this project? Anybody want to offer a suggestion, or do you want the suggestion from me?
You mentioned them, you know, like a matching. So you mentioned one possibility. I didn't know. It looked like that's what, 13,200. If they were going to match that, would half of that, if we gave the upfront half, and but I'm open to, you know, your suggestion also.
Yeah.
But I just was looking at what half of that was, that would be the first part, and then they would be responsible for the rest.
I did suggest in my email that, you know, $5,000 would be, you know, my thought on it, but I'm, you know, open to alternatives.
I have a question. Do we have a sort of a standard maximum per application, so that, you know, whether your costs are 13,000 or 130,000, that everyone has an equal opportunity for to receive a grant? And and I do like the idea of matching grants, but I think that the homeowners' money should go in first, and then ours should match that.
Oh, well, that's a point.
I thought it was always that they had to pay and then we reimbursed them.
That's basically the path, is reimbursement after the completion of the project and its inspection. Yes, yeah. The largest amount I believe we ever awarded in the past 7 or 8 years that I remember being on the board was $10,000 in one award. However, we have had one landmark owner come back multiple times at a time when the kitty was larger, and I believe may have garnered up to either $40,000 or $50,000 over 4 years or so, or 5 years, for various projects, mostly, as I recall, window replacements on the landmarked house that was involved, which is probably the most expensive element of any maintenance or
Right.
restoration project.
I think there was some roof work and there was some other.
Yeah.
This one we've had a couple times, but I can't tell you. I think David once gave us a list that had the totals of how much individuals had.
Yes, David did.
Where did this money come from? Was this a grant to us? And is there a time limit on when it has to be used by, or is there an opportunity to go back and get more money at some stage?
The money originates in a fund created by a private developer as a public benefit for the project that they were developing. And I don't think it's, I think it was the Sabonic Golf Course development that was developed.
Bayberry Land House that was
And
demolished.
so they made a $500,000 fund, $250,000 of which was for the Landmarks Maintenance Award, and another $250,000 for historic cemeteries or some other element which we're not involved in. We've already distributed probably now 170,000 of that 250,000, leaving about the $80,000, $90,000 available. So that's the origins.
What time frame was that, Ed? How long did we? But how many years ago was this?
I think the Sabonic development was 2011 or so, 2010, quite a while ago. Yeah.
I think we made that we could give up to 20,000 is what that was our limit. We made that as our limit in the beginning, but some years, of course, we don't have to give 20,000, and we did that hoping that someday, of course, there would be some type of way that it would be replenished, but that's not that hasn't occurred.
Yeah, the purpose of the fund is multi-purposed. Actually, it can be used for educational programs. It can be expended for other activities associated with landmarks preservation, not just the maintenance award, but that has been the stock and trade for the program for the last 7 or 8 years. There's been no alternative activity that was undertaken. Let me see if I can.
And I would have to, I mean, we would have to pull up the minutes and the resolution. I think as a group, we decided to go with the maintenance at the time, because at that time we may have had 10 landmarked, and 8 of them were from the town or commercial, and 2 of them were private. We were trying to encourage, private citizens to landmark their houses because it's, an optional thing. And to be honest, I thought, well, if someone's going to get this money, I didn't really see it being a significant benefit, but I was wrong. There are a number of people who landmarked their homes because they wanted to apply for this maintenance grant. So I stand corrected. I didn't think it would have as much impact, but it did on a number, particularly at that time. This may have been one of the ones that was landmarked around that time.
So you can see the program has as a stated goals assisting with preservation of historic structures, distributing funds as grants and matching grants to those who qualify for the Town Star program, to its exterior maintenance and repair work. It was designed to encourage people to landmark their houses in order to qualify for it. Commitment to long-term sustainability, commitment to preservation of its historic and cultural resources, encouraging public and private donations. Well, we haven't seen any other donations for the viability of the fund in the foreseeable future, and sponsoring educational events and programs. Yeah.
You're correct. You were correct. I forgot that aspect.
So, and this is last year's resolution for the 121 South Road, West Hampton, which was a matching amount of up to $10,000 for window work, conditioned upon equal or greater owner contribution to the expenses of the proposed project. So that's basically the character of this program. So let me ask: is everyone satisfied with the application that some kind of award should be made? First of all, is there any reason to doubt it at all? So I don't see any. Okay. So now the question is, what do you feel is appropriate given the approximate financial fund that's available, being about $93,000 that's presently there? Susan suggested half. To me, that's okay. Does that sound okay to everybody?
I don't know. It would be half, but it should be a given number. It couldn't be half of the finished.
Well, I think we should make it a dollar amount, and
exactly.
Yeah.
I kind of think we should have a standard amount, a cap. I mean, you haven't before. I think you said, Ed, if I understood it correctly, that 10,000 was like the largest single grant you had given.
That's what I recall. I don't think anyone has ever received more than 10,000. Some of those $10,000 grants were done very early on in the program and did not require matching by the owner. And so there was a very rapid depletion of the resources that were available, and matching soon became something that the board decided on.
I think this one has, this particular address there it is, has received a couple of them, and we may have actually, I remember one was for work already done one year, and I think we may have declined that one because the work had already been done prior to applying for the grant. What does it say?
Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are the properties, and you can see there's a lot of duplication over the years.
Repeated applications.
Yeah, this is the year the awards were made. And I think you're right on the number, Ed. It looks like we had 94,242 following the 2021 award. And that's taking into account the 10,000 that hadn't actually been spent yet, but was allocated.
Okay. Well, if you look at that particular address, you were looking at 2020, 10,000.
Josiah Foster.
10,000.
That's the same as the
10,000.
Foster Downs house, right?
Yeah.
So they did 10,000 in 2014, 10,000 in 2015. Foster Downs, 5,000 in 2017.
Where?
Uh,
I don't see the
and
5,000.
10,000 in 2020.
What's that total?
You called just Josiah Foster House. There was two different names, but that's,
Oh, wait, and I forget this one here, 10,000 in 2020. Oh, wait, that's the same. I'm not sure why those are under the same year. But it's a considerable amount that you've done.
It
for-
was, it looks like they're the same because it's the front covered porch repair which was carried over from one year to another.
Okay, that would explain it.
too many Foster names in here, huh?
It's the same property. I'm with your, Ed, your original proposal.
Yeah. I think the
I just sent
5,000.
I just sent that spreadsheet to everybody along with a report that Ed and I had submitted to the town board in 2020 outlining the allocations to date.
So do I hear a motion to approve an award for $5,000 to
Yes.
Sharon Azar? Okay. And moved by Vicky, seconded by
I'll second it.
Jeff. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So I will undertake that mission. Nothing on landmarks maintenance for nonprofits, since there's only one, I think, that we have at the moment. Someday that may come into play. Nothing on coordinating easements with the Community Preservation Fund as of yet, but still something that should be kept in mind to be accomplished. Setting up some kind of protocol. Certified local government status, as indicated, there'll be a work session with the town board March 24th, I think at 10 a.m. if I'm not mistaken. And Vicky, do you plan to be there, or?
I would like to be there, but I'm actually having eye surgery at that very time on that day.
Well, we could always have a virtual hookup through the operating room. So, okay, I'll go and
Thank you.
and no problem with that. So, do we have other things to consider for ourselves tonight?
I just have a quick comment. I do have the list of our prior landmarks, the 30 of them, with the 5 new ones added, the information that needs to be added to the website. So I'll send that out to everybody just to reread it for any technical typos. Camp Tekawitha seems to be spelled different ways for different people, but I spelled it, I think, correctly, I hope. But if anybody sees anything, once we review it as a group, I send it to you, David, to get it put it on our website. Is that correct?
That's good. Yep.
Okay. So I'll try to get that out tomorrow because I've got it ready to go. That's it.
Okay. Any other prospective elements here? So if not, I think we can adjourn the meeting. So thank you all. And next meeting, April 18th,
19th.
19th, you're correct, in person at the town hall. Usually, Barbara, when our meetings start at 7, I don't think the front desk is manned any longer in the evening, as I recall. So I don't know if there's any confusion. We haven't actually set the room for the meeting.
The big room?
Well, the question is, what kind of room do you want to meet in? The conference room is, most of you have had the experience there. You know how small it can be. And then there is the town boardroom, which we probably can commandeer equally well for our purposes. But we probably would have.
We can record it.
That makes me inclined to stick to the conference room.
What did you say, Charles?
That would be the only way we could record it, is if it's in the town boardroom.
Yeah, we're not going to record anymore once we go off Zoom.
Well, I was recording before we went on Zoom.
You were?
Yes.
How are you recording it?
Landmarks, we always record it because of Sarah.
Well, no, when we had, in our meeting, you're talking about two different settings. Prior to the Zoom episodes, we met in the conference room next to the town boardroom. Those meetings were not recorded.
Or the downstairs of the town attorney room.
Right.
Up to you.
Yeah. So, the other question is, in general, a lot of our stuff is inconsequential at this stage of the business of the Landmarks Board. So,
I'm not anticipating that we're going to continue recording, Charles.
That's fine.
Okay.
So, okay. Anyway, we'll await the final, because we have to check the final schedule for the room anyway. We'll alert everybody as to whether it's the conference room or the town board room.